This episode is brought to you by Hurriali, serving nourishing treats for the mind, body, and soul. If you haven't heard the recent podcast, give it a listen. Learn the story of how they built Hurriali Gardens. It's a great story, and I did not know half of it. It's definitely our spot before or after a surf for a fresh juice, strong coffee, or fire a breakfast burrito. And my new favorite is their healthy take on a banh mi. Hurriali Gardens, 401 Hugie Street, or their new location, Hurriali Riverland in James Island at 2016 Wapu Drive. Head High Studio, the brightest walls in the city. A gallery studio in the heart of downtown Charleston. In the studio now is Check It with Andy Davis and John Wegner, featuring original art and handcrafted surfboards by two Southern California legends. It's on view until June 26. Gallery hours are Fridays 4 to 7 or by appointment. If you missed the opening night, it's really cool that you can still go see this. Come check it. Head High Studio, 654 King Street. This will be good. I mean, honestly, I don't know that much about you.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you start surfing on Isle of Palms?
I would say I probably started surfing more Sullivan's, just because growing up in the old village, this kind of was like the backyard. Yeah, really young doing it. It was just going out there with my parents, on the boogie board. And then, we didn't have Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and all that. So I wanted a surfboard, and we were looking in the newspaper classifieds, and we came out here to Folly Beach, and there's a couple for sale. One of the guys we called, he said, come by. He wasn't there. He said, just leave the money in the mailbox, It was like $40 or something. So we picked it up, got it, and then we actually remembered that there was another one out there, and we called them, went and looked at it, and I liked that board better. So since the guy wasn't home at the other place, we actually took it back and we bought the other one. And it's actually a really cool board. It's a old Natural Art single fin, 6'6". I still have it.
Yeah, that's sweet. I saw an old Natural Art out there today. Did you see that guy?
I didn't, but there's still a few around.
Yeah. So did you take the money back out of the mailbox?
I hate to say it, but we did. we told the guy, and he's like, it's all right.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So did your parents surf or no?
They didn't. I started, my grandpa gave me a skateboard, and I got into that. And then, naturally being by the beach, the next thing I wanted to do was, surf.
Yeah. That's cool. And then you were telling me about Bert's a little bit today, of how if there had been waves for a while, then finally the Folly crew would start to show up. But did you guys have a strong crew that would always surf there?
So I feel like in my grade class of school, there weren't many other people, oddly enough, that surfed that much.
Yeah. So
I really was just going out there with usually I have a late birthday, so I could have gone to school with the class above me. And so I always was really friends with a lot of those guys because we're really kind of the same age. And so I'd hang out with them, their parents would take us out to the beach. It was just cool just going out there.
Yeah.
Not really. I didn't have a tight core group of surf friends back in the day.
We were going to do a project a long time ago where there's different artists and creators around town, and that was the first time I saw your stuff and your glass blowing.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting, cool stuff. We never ended up doing anything with that, but that was one of the things Rutledge made sure I asked you about, was that. How did that come about?
The glass blowing?
Yeah.
So just growing up, I was always, making stuff. It kind of started with skateboarding. My dad helping me make, skateboard ramps, little boxes to skate. Just, learn how to use my hands and use tools. Then in high school, I started making skateboards and stuff. And then I was just seeing all these glass things around, and after becoming a glass blower, you really realize that the general public doesn't really know that much about, how glass is made. And so I was just kind of curious about the medium. And I looked into it because Well, actually, if we go back even further, I was probably like 8, and we were up at Dollywood in the mountains.
Yeah.
And I saw these people blowing glass, and I told my mom, I'm going to blow glass. So that might be actually where the original spark came from. So maybe in high school that thought came back to my head. But anyways, just not knowing much about it, and having only seen, like, in Dollywood, it was a really big setup, you know, a lot of people like helping each other, and it just seemed like a big operation. But through research, I found out about a different way to blow glass other than in the huge shop, which they call that type of glass blowing hot shop work. And so I found out about flame working, and flame working, you use a torch just mounted on a bench, and you can, you know, do it in a relatively small space and by yourself. So once I learned about that, I took a class in West Ashley at this place called Blue Heron Glass.
Yeah.
And I just learned how to make beads with this lady one weekend. And you got to take your little torch home. You could, you know, practice. They give you a little color. And then I just kind of upgraded my setup, started traveling to take classes, and just learned more about that. And then I found out some stuff that I could make and make money, and just kind of rolled with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then that kind of, have you just been creating art ever since that kind of time, or have you done other ventures?
So the glass blowing probably, you know, really sparked my interest for creating stuff more. You know, I always took art classes in school, but I was never really like a painter. I was more hands-on. So in high school, we got to do a little more like sculptural work. And then on my own doing the glass, I just wanted to pursue kind of just creating stuff because I like doing it, and it's always fun. And then, you know, being able to generate a little bit of income doing it too was also a plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so did that lead into shaping boards? Did you just start by shaping for yourself?
So yeah, kind of, like I said, just always was kind of using my hands to make stuff. And I think the surfboards probably came more through when I was making the skateboards. I think that was more of that transition, because I was like, all right, like I made the skateboards and they can work. And then the reason I shaped my first board was I didn't surf not a lot middle school through like high school.
Yeah.
High school, I got into playing music and just kind of cruising around. And so my friend that I would hang out with, he'd be like, dude, Birch is good. And like, he would go surf, and I would never go with him. And then finally he got me to go, and I was like, oh man, surfing is like really great, you know? But he was like throwing me on this little like JC Hawaii, you know, super narrow elf shoe rocker board. And, you know, 75% of the time around here, it's not the board to ride.
Yeah.
And so I just was looking into it and started finding out about these different shapes. And the first one that sparked my interest was, you know, the fish shape, like just old school Steve Liz, Y point forward, you know, just a twin fin, old school fish. And so I met Chris Darby surfing out in the water, and he was originally from Charleston but had moved to California and worked for Gordon and Smith for probably 10 years as a shaper.
Oh, wow.
And he happened to be shaping at the end of my street. And he invited me to come see, you know, him shaping. And after I saw what he was doing, you know, the tools and everything like that, I was like, I'm just the kind of person who, like, if I get interested in something like that, I'm like, you know, just want to try to do it. And so I got a blank from Richard Prowse, Grasshopper Surfboards, and I kind of was trying to ask him kind of to like help me, and he kind of was just like, you got it, you know, after like I told him, because I really tried to research it and read a lot about it, and he was like, yeah, you got it, man. So I just shaped it, glassed it, and that was in 2008, and yeah, the rest is kind of history. It just kind of kept going, a couple more boards a year, and then friends kind of started asking, and it kind of just progressed.
So were you glassing boards when you started?
Yeah, the first one I glassed, probably the first 10 I glassed, and then I kind of got frustrated because mainly I had people asking me to buy the boards, and I didn't feel like my glassing and finishing was up to par to sell them a board.
Yeah.
So when I found that I could, contract that out to somebody who could make it, I felt like the shapes were fun because I've been riding them, but I just, the finish and the look, I didn't want to put something out there for somebody else to have that didn't look, that great or rough around the edges, I guess you could say. And so I started having Jamie Tuttle and Myrtle Beach do some of my contract glass work for a few years.
There's a group of people around here that swear by Longtoe boards, and that's all they ride.
Yeah.
I was in Puerto Rico, and there's a group of 3 surfers, and all they brought was Longtoe boards.
Yeah, cool.
But what is that kind of iconic shape that you first were doing that got everyone hooked?
I think it would just have to be the Mini Simmons for sure. After the fish, I started making, I was like, oh, I want, I tried to make myself a shortboard, and I was having those same feelings of just like, man, this isn't the board to ride a lot.
Yeah.
And then, man, I saw this one video, like probably around 2010 with Tyler Warren. He shapes this little 410 Mini Simmons bar soap type board, shapes it, goes out, surfs, and I was just like, it just looks so skateboardy, like, and just fun, wasn't having to pump. The board was making all the speed for him. And I just was like, I gotta try to shape one of those. So I had found this old board in the trash that I, cut the nose and tail off, and it already had like a pretty bellied bottom. So if I would have shaped it out, the board would have been like, like an inch thick. So I just left it. It had like traditional, almost longboard, like 50-50 rails out of the tail. But I put the fins were really far back like I had seen, and even though it didn't have that nice kind of hard edge you want in the back of the tail for a board to release and be able to turn, I still, when I shaped it and wrote it, I was like, there's something here, you could really tell.
Yeah.
So I found a better blank to use and shaped one with a little bit, it was still pretty rough, but it had more of the design elements that I wanted originally, and it went even better. So then I started being like, all right, I'm going to actually get like some proper foam and do it right. And then they just kind of started getting better and better. And it's so funny back then, now you see people riding them a lot, but back then, just about every time I would go surf, it was, what is that, a boogie board? Or you stand up on that? But they're just these little short 410, 5 foot wide, just really fun boards for around here, I feel like.
What it just allows you to...
The thing for me is you stand up on them and they're just already kind of going fast and down the line. Like, you don't have to really work them too hard. And then for me, like, my favorite thing to do is just draw out a nice, round, long cutback or something. And that board is just perfect for doing surfing like that.
Sweet.
Yeah.
It was the year 2020, and I think you won the award for the longest surf sessions every day. You were logging the most hours in the water I've ever seen.
Yeah. I think just coming out of that COVID thing, and the beaches got opened, and honestly, we were just blessed those few months of the summer, like we're not normally, with there's just waves.
Yeah.
And luckily, my shop's right down the road, so if I wasn't shaping or working, I can pop out to the surf. And I mean, it must have been 2-3 months that any day you went out to Folly Beach, it was at least thigh high, glassy, and rideable. Yeah. So, we were surfing, we were having a blast.
Yeah. Did that help you like figure out boards even more?
Yeah. Anytime you get to spend that much time surfing, and for me, when I'm surfing and riding waves like that, you're thinking about boards you want to make for riding waves like that and other waves, so I mean, it's like research and development. Yeah. So if you get that much time surfing, you almost want to have that much time shaping too,
That was one of the, like, we try to come up with topics to talk about, and we were like, who logs the most hours?
Yeah. We definitely, like, because I was like, I got to the point where, I just take the longboard, a mid-length, and a Mini Simmons, and you could surf all day. Yeah. Yeah. The tide might change, so you hop on the longboard, tide comes up, you can maybe ride your other board. A really great summer, 2020.
That was really fun.
Yeah.
How did the collaboration with Matt Biolis and Lost Surfboards first start?
So I just was sitting on my couch one night and I got a message on Instagram from Matt, and he was pretty much just like, "Hey, came across your work. Would you be interested in coming out here to make a couple of boards?" And I was just like, "Yeah, I think so." Yeah, it was pretty wild. And he told me to leave him my number, and he gave me a call, and I was waiting around for him to call, and I was like, man, I don't think it's gonna happen, you know. And I didn't want to like talk about it really, and like I don't know, because I felt like it was a pretty special opportunity. And then finally one day, I was over shaping, and he called, and we chatted for a bit, and so I flew out there and stayed for about a month. It ended up doing like 30 or 40 boards, and
Oh, wow.
he was, stoked on the way they were going and how they looked. And so he asked me to come back out for a couple of months, not this past winter, but the January before. And I've been out there like a year and a half now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about the process that you're doing? For a lot of people, they see Instagram photos and it's like beautiful work, but
For sure.
it's like labor intensive.
Yeah.
What you're doing.
Yeah. So I've always been like, I pretty much taught myself how to shape the boards just by reading, and how to laminate by reading, and then try and get messing stuff up. And I'd seen a few guys, oddly enough, Matt had actually had these guys out from France years prior, the Lucky Bastards. And some of the stuff they were doing just had this different look, and I was intrigued by it. So I was just, in my downtime, I wasn't doing them on like full boards, but I'd just do like little pieces of cloth and stuff, the fiberglass, and was trying to see if I could get something to look. I didn't want to copy them, but I was just interested in the process. And, I messed up a lot of stuff, but then I started kind of figuring it out. And there's other people doing similar stuff, but I don't think anyone's done it like as such a large scale that we've done it in the past year and a half out there. Because a lot of the stuff I do, it is, it's not just pull the cloth out, lay the resin to it. I spend usually, for my week's worth of work, one day will just be prep work.
Wow.
And then I can come in and kind of, get to it. And so the guy who works next to me, doing clear boards, he can do 10, 12 boards a day, whereas I tend to do 4 to 5 a day.
Oh,
so it just take a little more time.
And so what's any of these processes called?
So it's very similar to doing tie-dye work. Just manipulating the cloth like it was fabric, and then applying the resin pigments and the resin to them, to kind of get them to set on the cloth while you glass it.
What's the culture at Lost there? There's a lot more people than just Matt. Have you learned a lot from other shapers and glassers?
For sure. It's kind of like a big community right there in the surf. They call it the surf ghetto, in San Clemente. It's kind of just where the whole surf scene there was kind of born from. And it's pretty wild. There's still, guys around that remember all the stuff from back in the day, and the stories you hear there are pretty, rich in history.
Yeah.
And it's cool. But so that area, the shaping bays are over in one spot. We have 2 glass shops, you can walk to them, and all throughout the day you just see guys, walking blanks back and forth. It's cool. It's just a little network. And then there's one more glass shop right down the road. But being around so many people that do all of the work out there, whether they're the shapers, the glassers, the sanders, you really do learn a lot just by being immersed in all of it.
That factory, they're pumping out a ton of boards.
A lot of boards. Like peak production when I was there, the shapers in the shaping shop was doing about 1,000 boards a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does it kind of alter what, you were like in a little shop here, and then
Oh yeah.
Just seeing that number of boards kind of is insane.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's pretty mind blowing to me coming from just working in my backyard by myself. A couple of hand shapes a week, and then at the end of 2 weeks, maybe I have a couple glass.
Yeah.
And then out there, by the end of the week, our glass shops will do 50, 60, 75 boards in a week, finished, done, all through the shops.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, the scale of production is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Wow. What's it been like to see your boards under like professionals, Mason Ho, Luke Davis?
Yeah, it's pretty rad. Luke got some boards, and he got a really good swell at Malibu on a board that's like, it's kind of like a mid-length alternative shape that Matt does called the Glidra, and it really fit his surfing and the waves out there at Malibu, and just like the bright rail colors and everything on it. It looked really cool. And then the Mason one was pretty cool because I made a batch for him, and then I was actually back in town for my show that I did at Head High, and that day the contest was running, and I was so busy just getting everything ready. Then everybody came to the show, and everyone was like, "Dude, you see those waves Mason got on the boardy glass?" Everybody's just like super stoked here. And I was like, started seeing some of the clips, and I was like, "Wow, that's pretty cool." Yeah, really special.
It's kind of hard to imagine that when you're working on that board for it to be,
yeah, like seeing where it will go.
Yeah, that's really cool. How about your surfing life out in California?
So out there, I'm pretty lucky to be really close to the beach. I can, hop on the bike and be down at, around lower trestles, upper trestles, any of those waves, which are, especially lower. It's a world-class wave, and it's all right there. So I can, surf in the morning before work, go work, or a lot of times, especially in the summer, I like to just kind of go into work early and then surf in the afternoon, because they get waves out there, and there'll be waves all day, unlike here where you have like, maybe an hour window sometimes. So, just honestly, that trestles area as well, for me as a shaper, and the boards I like to shape and ride, they suit the boards and the stuff I like to ride, really well.
Yeah.
They're not super critical, heavy pitching waves. Just kind of long, banky, fun waves. And I'll kind of find these little zones on the days when it's crowded, and just kind of pick off shoulders. Because, I mean, coming from here, a shoulder of a wave out there is like the best wave you get all year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've learned that my surfing totally got messed up from here just because I'm trying to go so fast.
Yeah.
But then when you get on a good wave, it's about slowing down.
Slow down. Yeah.
And like,
for sure.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the first time I went to Costa Rica. Me and my buddy paddled out with the guy who owned the hostel we were staying out, and we were just surfing how we surf here. We get up and we're pumping, and finally, like halfway through the session, he was like, "Don't need to just slow down." We're like, "What? What do you mean?" I'm like, "We're surfing." He's like, "No, like," he's like, "Y'all are just like racing and beating it," and we're just like, "What?" And then we're like, kind of like watched a few other guys, and we're like, "Wow!" And we just told him like, "Hey, man, back home, if you don't get up and start going, like the wave's over. It's done."
Yeah.
And so that is, definitely a good point. You really do have to slow down.
Yeah. You just like think you're gonna miss something,
Exactly.
miss the section, but really those guys they take their time to get to the top.
They really do. Surfing out there and seeing a lot of really good surfing, like high level surfing, definitely has made me take notice of some of the things I do while I'm surfing.
Yeah.
And even though I'm usually not, riding a performance board like they do, where they can really drive up into the lip, and they kind of have this long delayed bottom turn that puts them right in the pocket, there's still little subtle things that I've noticed that like I've tried to, start doing a little more out there in those waves.
Kind of what's happening right now with your boards, like you're glassing Lost shapes.
Primarily my day-to-day is just glassing whether it be stock boards for shops or if you go on Lost Surfboards, you can put in an order and there's an option if you want an airbrush or you want a resin tint, and then there's a separate little thing for getting me to do it, and the order will come in with a picture maybe of a similar one that I've done.
Oh, cool.
And sometimes the customers will also reach out and we'll do something a little different. So yeah, my day-to-day is just glassing boards. It's also been really cool though for me because I still just love shaping. Materials and stuff out there, like if I want a custom blank, custom rocker, stringers, whatever, I can put in the order on Thursday and then the following Tuesday it's there.
Oh wow.
Whereas here, that's one thing that's kind of tough being a shaper here is just sourcing materials. What I started figuring out was best for me is just time it with a little bit of a swell, and can drive to Florida, Jacksonville, and there's a place that sells blanks and materials. Go down there for the day, surf a little bit, get materials, bring them back.
Yeah.
But out there, that resource has been really, special, and it's a great resource to have.
It's been really cool that like your name Longtoe or on those boards. That's really sweet that they allow that, and then that'll help for the future of your brand.
Yeah. There's been a couple of times where I've run out of logos and I'm like, oh man, I don't want to send them out without it.
Yeah.
Like even though they have a very specific look. It is really cool that I do get to do that for sure, because there's plenty of people in the industry that, they do really top-notch work, and for, the resin side of things, fiberglassing, and, a lot of them don't get any recognition.
No one knows their name.
Exactly.
Yeah. And there's like a lot of ghost shapers.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, very talented people making these boards.
So we posted some photos of like kind of some mixed media surfing where in places you wouldn't think of, like under the Ravenel Bridge. And then I got a lot of messages about people that have dreams like that as well, and you were one of them.
Yeah, for sure.
I think, and I keep hearing them, but where was you've surfed in your dreams?
Right. So my most like vivid, lucid, aware surfing dream, I feel like, was under the Ravenel Bridge around Drum Island. It was kind of the downtown side where, I mean, if you're driving to the bridge, you kind of always look over there, and it is like a little point.
Yeah. And
so there was this left just reeling into the little, wrapping in where like the port used to be. And I was like looking over there, and I was like, whoa, I was like, they're surfing it. I was like, wow. And like, I pal over there, and it's like people from around town, that you surf with all the time that I recognized out. And I was like, holy crap. Like, and then I was so aware of it that when I saw it in my head, like I had the thought, like, I knew it could happen.
Yeah.
Like it just had to be the right swell. Like I knew it.
Yeah.
And then I actually spotted in the same dream another wave over by Patriots Point, and I was able to walk to it, which was like really cool and also very weird because I know the water is super deep there, but it was just like knee high, and I was walking over to this other wave that it was a funky little left breaking there, not really like on any land or anything. It might have been related to because I like to go surf, the little inlets around town, and there'll be these waves that there's not necessarily a beach, but there's a sandbar and the waves are breaking. And so for me, that was like peak best surfing Charleston dream I've had. Had a couple of other ones like around the Pitt Street Bridge in the old village where I grew up, because like me and Rutledge would be out there.
I was trying to make one with that, but
yeah, because they put like well, you can sit out there and when the ships go by, little waves will come and break, and they're micro, but they'll wrap on these little sand points and stuff.
Have you tried to surf any of the tanker stuff here?
I haven't. Gordon Keeter reached out to me And we were going to try to do a little project one time.
Yeah.
Because there are some ways you can definitely surf,
Yeah.
but we never got to put it together.
Yeah. I think you have to put a lot of work into it.
You got to really want it.
Yeah.
But it could be done, which would be sick. And I've heard of a few people doing it.
I've heard that too. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you have any, like, in your beginning stages or when you were a little bit more established, that you just have, like, someone you really connected with making boards for? Like, they give you some good feedback?
Yeah. I've got a lot of people that I really like to make boards for, and they give me some good feedback. I've done a bunch of boards for Tom McFall, and he's like a great research and development, person to have, because he'll put my boards in some really good ways. And he's really knowledgeable about surfboards too, so he'll come back to me with really good feedback. And we're kind of every other year working on a couple of different boards. And then I think one of the coolest recently experiences with board making was with my friend Eric Luton. He grew up surfing in Florida and moved to Edisto. And back in the 80s was surfing all around Folly and Edisto a little bit, but mainly they would come surf Folly. And then I forget what age he told me he quit surfing, like around the early 20s. He just kind of did the adult thing, started surfing, or quit surfing, and just, doing, the daily whatever. Moved away for a long time. Ends up back in Charleston when he's about 40. And he hasn't thought about surfing. This is actually really good. We're coming full circle here. He comes back, hasn't thought about surfing in like 20 years, and he started having dreams about surfing.
Yeah.
And so he was like, whoa, like maybe I should try that again, He was kind of like at this point in his life where he's looking for, some new stuff to do. And so he got a board, not from me, but a board that got him back into surfing. And then he's told me that one of the things that kind of put him off of surfing was just like the mid-90s, early 90s, like Kelly Slater potato chip board thing, because Florida was like super heavy, obviously, into that, and he just kind of wasn't feeling it anymore. And his dad was a longboarder, but he didn't want a longboard back then, He just, if he wasn't on the short board, back then also there really wasn't a middle ground. You kind of were performance or you rode a longboard. The mid-length thing wasn't really like popular.
And longboarding wasn't popular to do.
Especially for young kids.
Yeah.
You're in Florida, Kelly Slater, you're not going to ride a longboard, And so I think he saw me riding again, full circle again, the Mini Simmons out at the washout. And he asked, I think it was maybe like Bubba Heath about, like, what's that guy riding? And he's like, oh, that's Malcolm, he makes those. And so he found me, contacted me. I made him a Mini Simmons, and he was just like, whoa, because he'd been trying to ride the shortboard. And I could tell he was a good surfer back in the day, because considering he didn't surf for almost 20 years, he's like still got, the body movements and everything, the style is still there. And then I think he was just kind of like a kid in the candy shop with Instagram and all these new boards. And he started coming to me like, dude, can we do something like this, like that? And over the course of a year, I probably made him like 6 boards.
Oh, wow.
And he was, it was cool because he didn't really ever ride a longboard, but I made him one. Next thing you know, he's like ripping on it. And so he's been one, like, not only a good new friend, but also a great person to make boards for and learn a lot about design and surfboards and how they work through him.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that one kind of means more than just like a random board going out.
Yeah.
Brought him back.
For sure. Like, he'll still, put in a board, and I know that I can make this board in 8 months, a year. He still wants it, and he doesn't need it right away.
Yeah.
But it's because it's a special board, and he knows that whenever it's done, and he'll get it. And he's probably got a list of 10 boards he wants. Because honestly, like, his stoke for surfboards and the design and different just boards that he wants is pretty incredible. It's like kind of like how I feel as a shaper, I can make all these things. I've kind of toned it down to like what I like now. But it's like that same fire of just like, what could this do? What could that do?
Yeah.
I should maybe try it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does the future hold? What do you hope to get out of all this new experience?
Man, I've just been learning so much through my work that's been really rewarding. So hopefully just more of that. I've mainly been, doing the glassing, been shaping a few boards. I'd like to start doing a little more shaping in my downtime, because I really do enjoy the whole kind of start to finish process. That's something that's really, really fun for me. So yeah, hopefully just, we're always learning. You never know everything. So just keeping at it, hopefully learning more, progressing, and most of all, just, having fun with all of it.
Oh, it's been awesome to see, and I know everyone's stoked here that you went out there to kind of,
Yeah.
pursue something bigger. And
Yeah.
so it's been awesome.
Yeah, it's been super fun. Man, when I first was gonna go out there, I can't describe, how nervous I was, because, I really did just mainly learn and work by myself, this whole time back in the day when I was learning all this stuff, and then to really just be thrown into a place that, like, even Matt was like, dude, how did you learn all this? Because out there, if you're not like kind of get your foot in the shop, start, maybe the first job you do is, setting fins or hot coating or something like that. If you don't want to do it, you're not really going to learn how to do it out there. Like, it's just a kind of a different system. For me, it was just kind of a trial and error thing that, I wanted to do it, so I kept with it.
What have you learned from Matt?
Um,
Do you work closely with him ever?
Yeah, I've learned a lot about a lot of things from Matt. He's, really detail oriented about the way he, wants a board to look. Shaping too. He mentioned it, and I didn't even realize it, but he saw some of the boards I had shaped not too long ago compared to the first boards I took out there to surf, and he's like, dude, your boards have, rails, everything have gotten a lot better. And it's just from, every day I grab 15 to 20 really nice shaped surfboards off the rack.
Yeah.
Put my hands on the rails, flip them over, I'm looking at fin placements, I'm looking at the rails, all these things that you don't really notice, but you learn a lot just by being around and, feeling so many, really nicely shaped surfboards.
Any favorite surf memories from Charleston, like a favorite swell?
I kind of just like the random little days where, you just score really fun waves with just a couple of friends around here.
Yeah.
Whether you're, just a couple of streets up from where everybody else is, or, you made a little trek to a little spot that doesn't break that much. We used to get a bunch of really fun days like that at Sullivan's Island and Birch and stuff. So really just kind of those special little moments where, all around you, Charleston's hustling and bustling, but you've got this little pocket of just like awesomeness. And Charleston is always going to be home. And I've learned that just from growing up here. People always go away, and then the next thing you know, they're back.
Yeah.
And there's just something about Charleston. It's a great town, especially if you grew up here. And even if you didn't grow up here, if you moved from somewhere else, it's still a really great town. And I know I can see why, so many people like it. So yeah, I'll be back for sure.
Well, thanks for doing this. I know a lot of people are proud of you and would love to hear this. So.
Yeah, it's been cool. Just whenever I've popped back in town, surfing, everyone's just seems to be pretty stoked, and I've just been having fun with it and stoked too. So it's really cool.
Really appreciate that. I enjoyed.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries.